I'd like to call tonight's meeting of the Lower Macungie Township Board of Commissioners to order. If we could all please stand for a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. For the roll call, everybody who is supposed to be here is here either in the building or through Zoom with our engineer, Brian McAdam, on Zoom tonight. Item 4, there are no agenda modifications. There are no announcements and presentations. Moving on to item 6, hearings and approvals. 6.1, resolution 2023-52, approving preliminary final development plan for Valley at Indian Creek, 3510 Macungie Road. Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. So we have a 22 unit single family home subdivision that's been before the township now for 2, maybe 3 years in different iterations. This is the lot that's at the corner of Indian Creek Road and Macungie Road. The lot in question, as you can see, is long and narrow. There was a fair amount of discussion back and forth about different lot configurations in order to develop it. What the applicants finally rested upon after a lot of feedback from the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners and visit to the Zoning Hearing Board was this internal loop road that you see here in the southwest corner of the lot, which is actually the upper the upper left-hand corner of the lot. You'll see that we have space for both open space. It's also going to be stormwater management area. Again, important point to note here is that there was a section of a township basin in the park that the applicants will be taking on to manage the stormwater from the development and taking that responsibility off the hands of the township. The township solicitor can speak to that in a little bit more detail, but that allows for this project to be able to convey their stormwater as needed. My understanding is there was originally we met with a fair amount at the Planning Commission, a fair amount of the abutters, ensuring that existing tree lines and landscaping was going to respect their existing homes, existing neighborhood. You can see over there on the north side, which is the right-hand side of the plan, that there's a significant amount of area, a semi-significant amount of area that's going to remain open space as well. Again, I should note the applicants received zoning relief to be able to get the layout that you see here before you. There is a landscape plan that's associated with this that's quite generous, as we always require with all of our new subdivisions. And there's a significant amount of trail space that goes back into the park and then eventually also connects down via a different trail towards our long-term goal of getting this area of the township connected to the township municipal building as we continue to try and find new trail sections to essentially connect via easement or taking through the land development phase if it's dedicated to us. Again, there's also a double frontage buffer for the lots that'll face up on Macungie Road. I think that's an asset for the site. By and large, that's the vast extent of it. Due to the number of units that are being developed, you'll see, again, it's very heavily landscaped, and that's because there's really nowhere else to put them in terms of trees. And then this is one of the first subdivisions where we've recommended, and we will continue to recommend it if the site doesn't allow for it. The street trees are on the inside of the sidewalk, not in between there and the curb, and that should prevent sidewalk and road buckling in the future, which we also recommend just so that it doesn't become a trip hazard in the future. Happy to take any questions that you may have. Again, I defer to the township solicitor to discuss anything with regards to the land conveyance for the basin. And then engineer McAdam is on to speak with any other items that involve the technical design. But again, I would just like to close noting that there has been a lot of time, a lot of input and hours spent to get to this final configuration that you see here before you this evening. And this is what staff, the solicitor and the engineer, as well as the Planning Commission, have recommended for approval from the board.
Mr. McAdam, any comments?
No, I mean, we have a review letter from April 5th. There's a series of comments in it that primarily relate to just engineering and drafting cleanup. There's also a review from the traffic engineer with similar items. We did work long and hard with the engineer regarding the basin design, the stormwater management design. There's some cleanup for the landscaping, but overall, I have no issues with the plan, conditioned, of course, on satisfactorily addressing the comments in our letters.
Okay. I have a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Commissioner Robert.
Okay, I have a few.
Okay.
Surprised?
Yeah, no, I do too. Are you surprised? So,
Okay, one is the road. It's my understanding that you want to have it be a private road because the township does have a policy that for developments that are under 40 dwelling units, that if the road is designed to township design standards, then we would accept the road.
so there's only one issue with that. When we work through a layout that works, we cannot meet every requirement of the design standard. I mean, in all candor, and staff can weigh in, if you were to say, we'll accept it the way it is, and we'll grant you that waiver, I don't know that matters much to us, but we cannot make the change to make it to conform to every standard. And we've known that from the beginning. And we were aware. Kate was here for me at that meeting. And I think it started out by talking about that policy. But then the second issue, if you recall, was the fact that we were going to have to create an HOA anyway if you went along with the pond. So at that point, it was determined if we were going to keep this layout and ask to get a waiver from Rob, you'll have to explain it, but it's just it's the radii, correct?
Correct.
On the roadway. That's a better layout for us. We'd be willing to accept the consequence, which is you keep the road, because Reese was forming the HOA and the builder he's working with is comfortable with and because we got to create the HOA anyway to do the pond. So again, that was, I think, the genesis of all this, because we couldn't really give in and get the road. I mean, candidly, we don't think it's much of a problem the way it's laid out, even if the township were to plow it. But we were accepting of the fact that if there was going to be you need to conform to standards, we couldn't do that and get the road the way I think everybody liked it. And I think your engineer and Nate would agree, the road ended up being the way you wanted it and a lot different than the way it started out. So that's what I think, if that's a fair statement with what our conversations were and how this kind of evolved, that's where I think we are. So we will keep it because we cannot make that radius change. But if you said, we'll grant you the waiver and we'll take the road, well, I guess it saves his people a few dollars a month then. But we were willing to do that because it worked with the pond and the road.
Okay, so yeah, I was concerned about how much the HOA fees are going to be.
I can't speak on the exact amount that the HOA fees would be, but speaking with the builders, I think that would be a non-issue for the plowing.
Okay,
And we're forced to create the HOA anyway. Difference between one where the only thing you potentially would have would be the road.
well,
That's the chip of sale, right?
well, the only reference I have is Harris York is I think 38 home, single family home gated community. And a couple of years ago, their HOAs were like $780 a month. So, but if you're willing to keep the road private, that's fine.
Unless you want to grant us the waiver and take the road the way it is. I mean, that's the only, and I don't know that staff is in favor of that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put it, but I mean, that's probably the answer, right?
Well, I mean, we're in a tough spot where we have to hold everybody to the same standard. So if the township's going to take a road, it has to meet all of our design standards.
Which we can't do. And we knew that for a long time.
Okay. Next item is associated with the ownership of the pond.
Mhm.
Okay, so my understanding is that there's gonna be a 1.1 acre sale from the township to the developer.
Yes, and we provided an appraisal that allowed you to do that.
Right. And, but then also in the resolution, it's calling for the 4.39 acres of passive open space to be dedicated to the township. That's number 19.
Okay.
And so what, okay, so number one, my view is that I can't see the township ever actually accepting the offer. But if for some reason it did, then the result would be that part of the pond would be in that 4.39 acres and part of the pond, well, and then the existing pond would be in the 1.1 acres.
Yeah.
So, okay, I would like to make an amendment to the resolution to remove the requirement for
About the same.
offer of dedication of the passive open space and add a requirement that the 1.1 acre be merged with the 4.39 acres as a single parcel. So that all of the detention pond is in under single ownership, which is the intent of all this anyway.
The only problem I see with that, Eric, is that we couldn't vote on it tonight because that's a different subdivision. They're voting on a subdivision plan and a land development plan tonight. And if we change the acreages for the basin, we have to change the lot line, subdivision plan, and would have to bring it back.
Why don't you make it a condition that we return with that plan? Can we do that? Rob, is that an issue? If it's just simply, so we can get a vote, it's
Yeah.
simply a condition that we'll combine them at prior to.
Since I'm not sure factually without a plan in front of me and talking to Nate and Brian, I can't comment on exactly what this is and whether that's doable or whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. So I'm not sure if Brian and Nate can answer off the cuff, but I defer to them.
Yeah, I guess that to me, the if we're going to combine things, then that changes the documents that are prepared that have been discussed as far as easements and whatnot. And I had done some rough numbers to see what would happen if we took out the basin from the passive open space area that's proposed. And I'm pretty sure it would be compliant if we subtract out the basin portion that's on the subject parcel. So I don't know. I mean, you can always make changes to plans. I don't know off the top of my head exactly how we would be able to put together something to nail this down differently than it already is.
Well, okay, so actually one option would be to, as far as the transfer of the 1.1 acres, do it as a lot line adjustment.
We actually do have that. So the plan we have, Rob, do you want to explain the plan? Nate, do you have that one? Can you pull that up?
Should be up because we already had that
Is it on
come
there?
through.
Talking about the
I can't tell.
subdivision plan?
So,
It already went through. We already,
Time out.
we covered this item pretty much at length as part of the lot line adjustment.
Yeah.
correct. The transfer of that portion of land that has the existing basin on it was going to be effectuated through a lot line change, you know, and not, it wasn't going to create a separate parcel. It was going to be a lot line adjustment to encapsulate that piece into our overall tract of land.
So the only thing that changes is the area of the open space, not the lots themselves, because you already were including it in the total for the new lot, correct?
Correct.
So it sounds like to me, what, if you were looking to make an amendment, the only amendment would be to not accept what I would amount to about 3 point something acres of open space. Because the 1.1,
Has already been submitted to us and managed as part of a previous lot line adjustment.
right, so in reality, the 4 point whatever is really, when you talk about passive open space, not including the basin, is 3 point something.
No. Okay, so the 4.39 includes the new portion of the basin, but it doesn't include the existing basin, which is the 1.1. And, okay, so the amendment that I requested was to not require the offer of dedication of the 4.39 acres. And then the second thing is to ensure that the transfer of the 1.1 acres is done as a lot line adjustment rather than carving off a separate parcel. And so therefore, the overall passive open space / detention would be 5
5 point something. Okay.
5.5 basically.
Because I think the first part isn't necessarily a condition, only because that is actually how we showed it. And that was my only point. The lot lines, the lot size, or none of those change. All that simply changes is you're counting in our passive open space what we got from a portion of what we got.
Renee, do you have the lot line adjustment plan that you could put up on the screen?
Can I ask maybe a dumb question? The subdivision plan that was reviewed is drawn in such a way that the parcel area and the open space areas are taken specifically for the subject parcel, not for that additional area that's being lumped in as part of the lot line adjustment. So if I'm following this correctly, the 4.39 is required based on the subject parcel, not, as the 35% of the 4.39 acres is what's required to be provided. Adding to that, because of the lot line adjustment, would make that number go up. But if we're subtracting out the basin, it's a bit of a wash. So I guess I'm not completely following, Commissioner Robert, what you were looking for.
Okay, the way this transaction is structured right now, the 4.39 acres is offered for dedication to the township. And there's 1.1 acre that is going to be sold by the township to the developer. So then let's say at some point in the future, somebody decides to accept the 4.39 acres that are offered for dedication. And so then that would mean that the 4.39 acres becomes property of the township, but the 1.1 acres is still out there as a separate piece that is not covered by that offer of dedication. So I just want to have all of the detention pond be under a single ownership and not cause any confusion with what it could occur in the future.
And that plan shows that because it creates it part of our lot.
I thought so, but
Right.
Since
Yeah,
more than one people disagree with what you and I think,
Well,
Yeah,
I can't comment.
I guess all I'm saying is I don't know that all we'd be saying is the total, if you add that together, we're not offering the 4.39 and the open space number is just those two numbers combined.
It
I don't
doesn't
think
matter.
it changes the plan, right? Other than I think Maury's just saying, I'd like it to reflect that those two numbers together are actually your open space. I don't know that it matters to us.
Can I offer a suggestion? There's a note on the plan that specifically says that the HOA will own and maintain the detention basin. Would it be helpful, Commissioner Robert, if that note was amended to say inclusive of the area from, and then reference this lot line adjustment plan?
Well, the cleanest thing to me would be to have the 5.5 acres, all one parcel that's owned by the homeowners association, and that's it. And as far as how many acres get counted toward the 35% of 11 acres, it doesn't matter because that's already taken care of.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's all part of a single lot, correct? I mean, and then the
Well-
HOA will take both of those, and all we're doing is, are you just saying, make sure it reflects that the HOA has 5 point whatever the number is, as opposed to 4.39?
Well,
I thought it was the other way around. But it was one less. I'll be honest with you, I'm not gonna be able to advise based on this whole discussion. I think it should go back to the workshop. That's just my opinion.
Well, except I don't think we're changing anything.
Before we take that step, to amend it, we still have to take a vote on amendment. So the board would have to agree to the amendment to take it back to the workshop. So,
Or just table.
or table.
Yeah. And
Correct.
we'll end up back on.
Right. That aside, any other questions?
one more.
Yes.
You have time? We just want to get it right. I mean,
Right,
you know,
right.
and
But I think our plan is accurate, is all that I'm saying. I think we're just doing machinations that are about a number, because the plan shows that becoming part of the overall lot. And then the plan note, like Brian says, reflects what's going to occur, which is the HOA is gonna be responsible for that whole pond.
I thought I understood it that way too, but I don't now. Based
No,
on what
I think
Commissioner
my
Roberts
statements
said.
are accurate.
What's the third question?
Okay, with the 4.39 or 5.5 or whatever, not being offered for dedication, is there a provision for citizens to use the paths that go through there?
It is a general public access easement.
So there would be a general public access easement associated with the pathways in the passive open space area.
Yes. Yeah, and that would remain regardless of how we treat any of the other items.
Okay, and you're saying that the documents drawn up for the transfer of the 1.1 acres are a lot line adjustment?
It's on, and that's what's on the screen. Exactly. That's why I don't think.
If you
it's an
slide
issue.
it over a little, you see the
You can see
label.
the, look back here.
Yeah, there's another plan that is just the lot line adjustment, and the plan clearly states it's a lot line.
Okay, so then we don't need to worry about the ownership of the land. And so the only motion is to remove the requirement for the offer of dedication of the 4.39.
And I would think that shouldn't hold things up. That's taken out.
Before we get to that
As long as
part,
Nate and Brian don't have a problem with it, I certainly don't.
I don't have a
So
problem.
you're talking about striking paragraph 19?
Yeah. I don't think candidly we ever thought you had to accept. I mean, it was just like the other things.
yeah.
You know?
They're offering it, but we don't have any intent to take it because it's going to be managed in perpetuity by the homeowners association because there's landscaping on there
Right.
that we don't want to be responsible for.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, before we get to that, is there any public comment or question about this topic? Okay. Then, we have a motion for resolution 2023-52 approving preliminary final land development plan for Valley at Indian Creek, 3510 McCungy Road, with an amendment removing item 19. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Are there any other commissioner comments or questions? Yes.
Just one comment, the easement will be noted in the notes, right?
Yes.
That should cover that,
Mhm.
the walking trail easement through that property,
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be very clear that it's public.
yeah. That's
trail.
usually in the notes, correct?
Notes, probably. in the
Notes and
development
then noted
agreement,
on the easement.
And lastly, it'll be in the declaration, the HOA deck.
The
It'll be in
recorded,
3 places,
the
All right,
recorded
thank you.
plan shows all of the easements.
which was going to be my only comment. Oh, sorry, you can take the vote. My only comment was going to be, we have to get the HOA declaration right.
Yes.
Because to address Maury's comment, Commissioner Roberts' comment.
And then I just had two clarifications. Sure. On two of the conditions, just so we're clear.
Yep.
Number 14 started out, I think, because we weren't positive, Rob, about the improvements, whether you would need an HOP. I think you just wanted to point out, I think that evolved, and I think there's, your engineer was in discussions. We may not in fact need an HOP for what's now being proposed. So the way I look at it, it just becomes moot if it's not, and it's in there if we need it. And then the one other comment is on number 30. There was a meeting with, I think at least Nate, I'm not sure how else was with you, Reese, about instead of necessarily doing a fee in lieu like it says for the trees, about there were some suggestions, Nate, as to where to plant some other trees. We just want, if this condition is broad enough, if you choose to do that, we'll do that. If not, we'll do the fee.
That's up to the pleasure of the board. I mean, the reality is like I noted when we were given the overview, there's not enough space to plant trees on the site. So as long as there's a recognition that it's either going to be a fee in lieu of or planting somewhere else, it doesn't matter.
Okay, that's all we wanted to mention is we still wanted to potentially do that.
Should we make that modification?
It's already in there.
It's already in there.
He
Well-
was just clarifying what was in there.
Okay, well, it says fee in lieu. It doesn't say or plant them someplace else.
Yeah, it doesn't say or plant elsewhere. It was, but I thought there was a gentleman's agreement on that. It would be great if it said that, but we're not hung up on it either. So we certainly don't want to delay anything over a few trees.
All right, so
We've
then
been at this a while. We'll give up the tree.
the motion is approving preliminary final land development plan for Valley at Indian Creek, 3510 McCungy Road, with the amendment of removing item 19, and that any
Well-
trees, the replacement of trees will be in lieu of or at a site determined by the township.
Correct.
Does 20 need to be removed as well?
No, we haven't had the close. We have the closing. I don't think we've closed yet.
Hmm?
20 is the one with the closing. I think we still need to do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion is second. Any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Hey,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot for your time.
Thanks. Okay. Item 7, public comment on non-agenda topics. Good evening.
My name's Laurie Geist.
Lori, before you talk, if you could just sign in.
Oh, sure.
With your name and address.
Hello. My husband Kenneth and I submitted a letter through Mr. Vital
Mhm.
To the Board of Commissioners. It's in regards to the stormwater drainage basin that is on our deed. It's the basin's address is 3158 Watermill Drive. You can read the letter. We detailed what we know since we've lived there for 17 years.
Just, so you know, we've seen the letter.
Right.
It's included in our
Okay.
packet.
Okay. So the main issue is that it is a complete hardship at this point to continue to care for it, and it needs work. There are over 50 trees. A few of them have need to be cut down, and there's soil erosion. And the point that we made and are trying to make is if the stormwater drainage basin was owned by the township, a public entity, you'd be able to apply for and receive the MS4 municipal separate stormwater sewer grants and work with the conservation district to be able to do the work that needs to be done. And it is a conveyance that's part of the whole system-wide conveyance. As you know, all the water flows to the Lehigh River and to the Delaware River. So for whatever reason, and I'm sure some of it is that the township doesn't want to have responsibility for these things. This was not the best design, having 53 trees around it, the eastern white pine trees. So they're getting older, they need to come down. There's erosion. I don't know what homeowner would be able to take care of all these issues. So we're requesting the consideration of working with us to try to figure out what needs to be done and how it can be done in a timely manner.
I know that Mr. Vital has responded to you in a letter.
Yes.
In response to your letter. We will discuss it at our workshop at the end of the month. I'll be candid with you. I don't see any chance that the township takes responsibility for it. It was made very clear on the deed more than once that it's part of that piece of property. And as you just saw right before us, we do everything possible to not have to maintain the basins
Right.
because
It would have been nice if there would have been an HOA created.
I understand that.
So,
And
that's
you know,
another issue.
looking back as far as that was, it was a much different time, a much different
Do you
place.
feel that the township has no responsibility whatsoever because you receive grant monies to inspect? There's no responsibility. It's part of the conveyance
it
of
depends.
Wormaconjee Township.
It depends on whose ownership it is. We do inspect them, but whoever owns them is responsible for fixing the problem.
And how do you foresee a homeowner spending the money to
Again,
take care of what's required?
I
there?
don't
We
personally-
didn't create it. Previous commissioners and
Right, the supervisors
planners
approved that, yes,
approved it.
right.
Now, that was 20 plus years
Yes.
ago. Things are changing, things are different.
Completely, understand.
And this is a new set of commissioners who can
I completely understand that.
rectify situations that are not good. And it doesn't just serve us.
Mhm.
It's on our deed,
Yeah.
but it's serving the whole area and it conveys
Right.
with the rest of the waterways.
We're going to discuss it at
Okay.
the workshop.
Okay, well,
all
we
right.
appreciate your
Yeah,
consideration.
No problem. We
Um,
consider every request. I just want to prepare you. It's, there are plenty of basins that we do own, that we do have to maintain.
Exactly.
However, if we were to take all the basins, like the one you said, we would quadruple taxes in this town because we can't pay for them.
And
We can barely pay-
So how would you propose that we pay for what needs to be done there?
Unfortunately, I don't propose how you pay for it because you bought the property and that was part of the property.
Well, and the letter explains a lot of details there.
I understand.
too.
I understand. Listen, we have a rule in place now that, when you buy a piece of property, everything has to be disclosed. That was not always the case.
Right.
Again,
Correct.
it's 17 years ago. It's not, that was not a rule then. It's a rule now because of situations like this.
And
We will discuss it on the 27th. Please come back and
We
we'll
will.
take your
what time is that
commentary,
meeting?
6 o'clock,
And it's,
right here.
thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on non-agenda topics? Okay, moving forward, item number 8, communication, Mr. Vital.
Thank you. We have several this evening. We just heard one from 8.1. 8.2, Avery Smith, a letter notifying us that she is not seeking reappointment to the zoning hearing board.
there's an interesting wrinkle to that. She has been sitting on the hearings associated with the Home Depot situation at Tyler Pipe. And so and there's a potential that that will not be resolved by the end of the year. So there might be a need to give her a short-term appointment or something like that.
Well,
The
what I
sol-
would do is I would ask the solicitor for advice on that. That I don't expect you to give it to us right now, but, okay.
I would just reappoint her, and after 2 months, which is probably all it's gonna take, she can resign, and then we'll be in the position we're in now. On
Okay.
her seat. The all council and the board itself preferred that she deliberate with them,
Sure.
and she was willing to do that.
Okay.
So I suspect it'll take 2 more months.
See, that's how I would have started the story. That she's willing to do so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Um,
to her credit, the night before the last hearing, she wasn't there, and we called and she came over. So
Okay.
she's gone above board for this one.
Mr. Vital to continue.
Thank you. Dania Kessler, statement of interest for reappointment to Parks and Rec Committee. Ryan Kennedy, statement of interest for reappointment to the Planning Commission.
Okay. There are no appointments to various boards, committees, or commissions this evening. Item 10, approval of minutes from the previous meeting for October 19th, 2023 with a proposed change from Mr. Vital.
Yeah, if I may, and I apologize to the board and the public, as part of our discussion at that last meeting, I did quote 50% of open space monies per year could be used to purchase or could be used for maintenance and improvements of open space. It's actually 25%. Just wanted to clarify that to the public. My mistake on where that is, and also clarify that to the board. So I would ask that you respectfully reflect that my mistake to clarification.
Okay. Is there an
Move to-
amendment to approve, or is there,
Move to approve with the modification.
you have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 11, approval of transfers, bill list, and payroll. Mr. Vital.
Thank you. I have the following for your consideration. General Fund, $438,381.30. The Sewer Fund, $155,898.34. Capital Projects Fund, $513,175.25. Liquid Fuels Fund, $55,800. The payroll, $160,369.82. Developer escrow, $84,188.38. For a total of all funds, $1,407,813.09.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the bill list for November 2nd, 2023. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And as always, the full bill list can be found on our website for your review. Item 12, departmental matters and reports. 12.1, engineering, Mr. McAdam.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing additional to report tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for the engineer? 12.2, planning, Mr. Jones.
Okay, just a security release, Mountain View Estates off of Elbow Lane, work that's been completed and inspected by the township engineer. We're going to be releasing $32,622. $723,246 remains for the rest of the public improvements.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve resolution 2023-53. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Anything else, Mr. Jones?
Only other item is planning commission agenda is posted up on the township website. It's been sent out to the board as well. It's a pretty robust agenda, and it looks like in the beginning part of the new year, we're going to have a couple of conditional use hearings just to get you ready for it.
Okay, any questions for the planner? Item 12.3, Solicitor Bruman.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for the solicitor? Item 12.4, Township Manager, Mr. Beidle.
Just one quick thing. The staff is working to update the budget after the workshops. We should have the final draft to you gentlemen fairly soon for your review. I would look for a preliminary adoption on the next meeting of this month so that we can have a final and make our timeline at the end of December.
Okay.
Unless there's any questions for me, that's all I have.
Questions for the manager? Okay, item 13, other business. Is there any old business this evening? Is there any new business? Seeing none, Board of Commissioner reports. The next board regular meeting is November 16th, 2023 at 6 p.m. The next board workshop is November 27th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Sir, are you here for anything in particular? Because we're at the end of the meeting and we don't get visitors very often, so I want to make sure that we didn't skip over you for anything. Okay, well, we did that part, but if you want to come up and, that's okay, you can come up and do it. Just need to sign your name and address in the book and state your name and address for the record.
John Firetag. I live in Alberta, so I'm not technically Lower Country.
Okay,
Okay, but
sure.
what's going on affects my life, and I've gotten a lot of opinions in town about it. And that would be regarding Church Street Bridge.
Mhm.
I understand that there's no plans to open it. At least that's what I hear through the grapevine. How do we fix that?
That bridge is not being replaced. It's deficient. It was slated to be removed many, many years ago and never was. But with over 13 bridges in the town that we have to maintain, and with other options to get from the township to that part of the township in Albertus, that bridge is not being replaced at any time. As a matter of fact, it'll eventually be removed, and that'll be a closed crossing.
Okay, here's the problem. I mean, we were, pretty quiet community. Does anybody live at Hills of Lockridge?
We know where the hills of Lockridge.
I know, but anyone live there?
No.
Okay. I know the road in Albertus now become a highway because of all the traffic is created. Through Road, Hills of Lockridge, took out one when Hills of Lockridge was approved, I guess before you guys were around. One bridge was closed at Mack Truck. That was one access point. Now a second one's being closed. You're now diverting whatever through traffic from the warehouses and Hills of Lockridge, and anybody that has to get through the other side of town completely through Albertus. How's that fair to Albertus?
Our fire department responds to fires in Albertus. Albertus doesn't pay for it. How is that fair to the citizens of Lower McCounty Township?
Well, it has nothing to do with fires.
No, I'm just going one for the other. I mean,
No.
that's not fair to our residents either.
Well, the thing is, it's, you're talking about much less occurrences, the fire department versus traffic.
All I can tell you is the bridge is not being replaced.
So no chance of getting an access road, another access road.
No. Maybe another board in the future decides to, but I don't see that happen. Once the railroad crossing is closed, it's going to be closed forever. Right now, you have Shanick Road, you have Gaiman Road that are access points out of the Hills of Lockridge into the borough and to Lower McCounty Township, not Albertus. There's two exits from the Hills of Lockridge.
Right. There used to be 4.
Okay, and now there's 2.
Right. So you put, and there was 4 before the Hills of Lockridge. I've lived there 30 years.
I get it, sir. I'm telling you like it is. It's not going to be replaced.
Is that because of funding?
It was made as a decision many, many years ago, before this board was even seated, that it would not be replaced when it was time to go. It's now deficient. The only way to fix it is to replace that bridge, and we're not going to replace that bridge.
That before Scenic Drive was connected to Church Street?
I honestly don't know.
Church Street was Church Street. Scenic
I
Drive-
know where Church Street is. I know where Scenic Road is.
Scenic Drive.
Right. Scenic View Drive.
Okay. Guess that's it.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, with nothing else, the meeting is adjourned.
Good night, all.
Night, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Good night.